This week on the Mike Brunick Show, we are continuing our three-part series on health and wellness as an entrepreneur. In this episode, Mike is going to walk us through a few of the health and wellness myths out there. And after this series, we're shifting into a new exciting format where Mike will be interviewing guests from all fields of work, bringing in fresh perspectives and real-world insights from all across different industries. If you think you'd like to be a guest on the show, shoot an email to the email in the show notes, and I'll get back to you. I want to talk for a couple minutes about alcohol. There are two sides to this coin. There's the people out there who say alcohol is poison and it will shut down your organs and you'll die young, and it feels very dramatic. And then there's the other side that feels maybe less dramatic and a little bit more attractive to people who like to drink. But it's that a glass of red wine will actually make you healthier. And I don't know if there's a truth in the middle of that somewhere, or maybe it just depends on the person and BMI and all of those factors. But I wanted to get your take on alcohol and how it affects the mind and physical fitness too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Irishman from Boston, and alcohol is still to this day a big part of my social life. The guys that have a lot to say about this are correct. Andrew Huberman, with his famous podcast on health, is right when he says that alcohol is poison. It is literally a poison for your body, and it does damage your body even in small amounts. And one drink is not going to kill you, but it's worse for you than no drinks. And two drinks is worse for you than one drink, and it doesn't get better as you move down the line. So it is not good for you physically. But the other guy who has a lot to say about this is a guy by the name of Scott Galloway, who's a commentator on TV all the time, great podcast. And, Scott Galloway thinks that the biggest problem in our society right now is loneliness. The biggest problem in our society right now, especially young men, is disconnectedness. And so he says, with respect to those who correctly call it poison, what he's encouraging young people, especially young men, to do is to get out more. And if every relationship you've ever had, whether it was with a mentor or a boss or a friend, was probably eased in a social situation by the presence of some amount of alcohol. So go out and have a couple of drinks. It's much more important that you be out and talking to people than it is to be home and healthy. So Galloway is right and Huberman's right, but there is no real science that says one drink is actually better for you than none. That's not true.
I don't know. I must have heard that when I was like a teenager or something. And
They did used to say that, and it was
yeah,
actually some flaws in the cohort, because the people that had one glass of wine were also doing other things. They hadn't controlled it particularly well, but one glass of wine is not better for you than no glasses of wine. But one glass of wine is okay for sure.
I might have one later. I want to talk about macros. You've mentioned in a couple of previous episodes that you do track your macros. I want to understand just how someone like me or some entrepreneur or business leader can get started with that. Is there an easy way to do that? Because it seems a little daunting.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. I mean, there's only three the word macro just means big, right? So, there's lots of categories of nutrients. But when we talk about macronutrients, there's just three categories. There is carbohydrates, there is proteins, and there's fats. That's it. Everything falls into one of those three things. It's classified as one of those three things. And so carbohydrates is everything from sugar to fruits and vegetables to crackers and breads, and all of those things are all forms of carbohydrates. And then proteins are, things like meat and cheese and eggs, and, those things that have those specific items that allow for cellular regeneration and muscle building and all that stuff. And then fats are things like oils and butter and those milk fats and those things that that provide that essential energy store. So when people talk about balancing their macros, the point there is to say my body needs all of these things. It needs carbohydrates, it needs proteins, and it needs fats. So going on some weird science experiment where you don't take any carbs or you don't include any fat, it's not proven to be successful. And if you have a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and a little bit of carbohydrates when you eat, your body gets satiated faster, so you can eat a little bit less and not be hungry. If you're trying to eat just one thing, just carbohydrates, well then your body's still telling you to keep eating, try again, I'm not full, because you haven't gotten everything that you need to get. So people shouldn't be intimidated by this talk about macros. Just think about the things that are fat, the things that are protein, and the things that are carbohydrates, and to try to get a balance of those. And there are ratios. You can look in books, and Zone Diet and others will tell you, 2/3 of this and 1/3 of that, and ratios of grams and those kinds of things. But for most people, just try to get a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of carbohydrate with every meal. You're probably under-proteined, and so make sure you're doubling up on that, and you'll find that you eat a little bit less and you start to lose weight.
Very cool. I think one way that people can control what they're putting into their bodies every day is meal prepping. So I was wondering, before we get into our lightning round today, this is kind of a precursor to that. Do you have a favorite meal prep that you make consistently?
I don't. You have asked me in prior episodes what I have for breakfast, and I told you I have a couple eggs pretty much every morning. Mayonnaise and sriracha. We talked about this. It was an awful, probably a lot of negative comments in the podcast room. I don't meal prep. My wife and I both work, and we subscribe to one of those home meal delivery services. So 1 or 2 nights a week we'll have food that's been not prepared, but the portions have been put into a box and say, okay, here's your chicken and asparagus dinner, just needs to be cooked. So those make things a little bit easier from a shopping and preparation perspective. But I don't do a lot of meal prep, just not in my habit right now.